goal for this team here in Tacloban has been to create the preconditions for a resilient city. I mean, you cannot avoid typhoons, but you can make sure that cities develop in a safe and resilient way. After the typhoon of Yolanda, the Tacloban team worked actually in a post-disaster situation. The urban labs, like in Tacloban, can be used to shift from the emergency state to the development state.
If you look around here, it's really just breathtakingly beautiful. The landscape, the sea, the mountains, and actually a very pretty town as well. You kind of wonder, as a planner, what you can contribute. After the storm, a lot of people have very quickly rebuilt their homes. And yes, they're rebuilding them in a sort of compact, informal way. You see it along the coast here. So the reality is we are kind of caught between big ideas and people who are already making their new living environment on the ground on a day-to-day basis.
The team came in that situation, and then still you find all the agencies that were in place to do the humanitarian work and to do the emergency work. They all had plans, they already were developing housing and shelter, and this also really links to the urban lab as what I call a strategic intervention.
Tens of thousands of people were left homeless. When a great surge of charity institutions came in to help, which was a very good thing, they found out that there was a lack of a good master plan for the whole city. So that resulted in a lot of settlements, resettlement areas being planned and being produced that were put in the landscape without any planning. So there were some people really demanding and asking for a good urban master plan, and that's the reason why we're here. We're here to help and advise in making an urban master plan.
The Tacloban team operated differently than the other urban labs. The other urban labs were pretty much focused around concentrated missions. In Tacloban, the various partners of the team, they went and they came back, and then with the two of them, and this all had to do with the pressure on the project.
Immediately after the storm, we realized that not only one but several phenomena happened, and it was definitely something out of the ordinary. So we believed in the city government that it was important to partner with experts in rehabilitation, reconstruction, urban planning, which are all the key elements really in rebuilding and restructuring, a community.
It's the first time that we were hit by this kind of storm. We have seen that the north of Tacloban City, we call it Tacloban North, is the most safe resettlement that can be done. So we planned this permanent sites, and we moved 1,000 families in the past 2 years in transitional houses. So these are staging areas where very nearby the permanent houses where they will be transferring eventually.
We are talking about building a new city. We are talking about a huge chunk of our properties destroyed. We are talking about moving 14,500 people to safer places. That means how many? 14,500 households to safer places, 80,000 people to safer places. The impact is very huge, of course. The assistance at this very critical stage for us to plan a better, safer, more resilient city, it's very critical at this stage.
A new city is almost impossible to plan and design. Generally, it fails, and in very rare circumstances, it succeeds, but then often it succeeds so well that it fails as well, it kind of sprawls. So there's very little you can do well and right with new towns, and yet that is the mission, the task at hand here in Tacloban.
Impact of the design team, the experts that are here, definitely it's what we've seen. The planning is much faster, it's more effective, and having this realization that it is a growing and a living document, that it always has to be revisited, and most importantly, it has to be customized.
The problem is, of course, that in a process this condensed, it's very difficult to hear to get feedback from the public. So we do have a lot of feedback from the people from the municipality, but obviously we don't have a lot of feedback from other people.
The chances of another mega storm Yolanda hitting exactly the same spot across the center city right here is 1 in 10,000 years. It's basically nil. And yet this is driving many of the decisions that are currently being made. On the other hand, the larger region, the other islands in the neighborhood, are faced with constant threats of typhoons, of earthquakes, of mudslides, etc. Actually several a year. So the chances that a major disaster strikes the region is almost 100% every year, which means that this city will likely absorb refugees from other areas. So it has to become a transient city. It has to become a city that is able to swell up and accommodate these refugees easily.
We will try to have a city where poor and rich are evenly mixed. Because the danger, of course, is that those people who are most in danger, most of these people were people living in slum areas, that they are the ones being resettled in new areas, new towns for the poor. Areas where people have basically no livelihoods and no future, and that's exactly what we try to avoid.
My vision here is that we will be the template of the country in terms of disaster preparedness, and when we say a comprehensive, integrated, and a more sustainable as well as a resilient not only planning but management of such weather changes, adaptation, and of course you have mitigation there. Then let's talk about even being more resilient toward any hazards for that matter. And obviously, it's not only preparing for another very strong typhoon, but also preparing for any kind of weather disturbance, challenge, and be it natural and be it man-made.
There are parts of the planning exercise are being reflected in the land use plan, but some essential things are still lacking. So we are now in the process discussing with the government and discussing with the specialists before the plan gets finalized, that we still make sure that these essential components are part of this very important legal framework for the development of Tacloban in the future.
Wow.